Hello, I am Yogini Sunita, and this is Meditation, Yoga, and Stuff podcast. I believe my dharma or my life's purpose is to share my understanding of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda, holistic healing science of India. I make these amazing wisdoms accessible and adaptable for present times. So let's start. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here today. I'm very excited today. We have amazing Katie Rose from Bhakti Rose for our podcast today. Hello, Katie. Welcome.
Hi, Sunita. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm also an Ayurveda coach and educator. I've been teaching yoga since I left high school. So I was 18 at that point, and I'm 44 now. So I don't even know, but more than 20 years. Mm-hmm. I live in Australia now, but I'm originally from the UK. So I've done my training all over the world, actually. I did my main yoga teacher training in New York, but I've also studied a fair bit in India, Australia, and plenty of time in America as well.
And at the moment you are in Australia, right? Like you?
Yeah, in Sydney. In fact, it's coming up. I've nearly been here for 20 years. It's 18 years now. So it's been a long time. And all my children were born here. So definitely this is home now.
Beautiful. Okay. So I wanted to talk with you about your yoga journey today. I do that because I just want the listeners to know that we all come to yoga from a different path, but the aim of the yoga is the same, bringing that peace of the mind and moving towards enlightenment. So can you share your journey with us? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I think my story is a little bit unusual because so many people come to yoga. Like the common story I hear a lot is feeling stressed, feeling, maybe burnt out. A lot of people from perhaps a corporate background or something like that. And then yoga is a great way for stress management. And it's sort of like a savior in their life of, being busy and overwhelmed and all of those things. For me, the story is a little bit different. It's, I feel it sounds a bit esoteric or a bit woo-woo to say this, but I'm sure your listeners will be open-minded. I actually feel for me that I had a connection to yoga almost from a past life. Like it's been there for as long as I can remember. I wasn't raised in a yoga family. My parents are not hippies. I grew up in England. I grew up in the English countryside on a farm. My mum's a school teacher. My father was a motor mechanic. And I just always had this absolute fascination, particularly with India and with the Eastern teachings. When I was very young, before we moved, because I grew up, I was born in London and then we moved to the country when I was 8 years old. But before we moved, when we were still living in the city, our next door neighbors were an Indian family. And I would often go over to their house. They had young children, same age as me. And I'd play with the little girls. And I'd always be asking the mum about the Indian food. And she would cook. I now know she would cook Ayurvedically, but I didn't understand that at the time. And I was so interested in the herbs and the spices. And I was always really excited when I got invited to eat with them. I loved her music and I loved her saris, and it was just the whole thing. I was like kind of enamored. And then as I got older and I started to understand a little bit more about Indian culture and particularly philosophy and, the spiritual teachings, I was just so hungry for knowledge. Like, this is pre-internet because I'm not so young. So I was going to the library and borrowing books and reading and learning. And then as soon as I wasn't even really old enough. I was 16 when I first went to India. And from then I just kept going and studying. And, I remember as a teenager, all my friends had pictures on their walls of like rock stars and, actors and things, which I also had as well. But I had a big picture of the Taj Mahal on my wall, and it was my big dream to go to India. So looking back, my parents found it a little bit weird. And when I look back now, I think it seems a little bit odd too. But I really believe, honestly, it was like a past life thing. And even now, I don't understand Hindi. Like I said, I don't have any cultural connection to India, but when I go to India, when I listen to like when I watch a Bollywood movie or I listen to people speaking Hindi, it's honestly, Sunita, it feels like there's a memory there. Like I feel a connection. It's so bizarre. Even though I don't have a way to explain that that's logical, I that is very much there for me.
Yeah, I totally understand. I similar to you, I had really this strong pull towards yoga, and I was like, I want to know more. I just could not stop, and so I was reading all the books, and I luckily I had Sanskrit as a part of one of our subjects in school. And I just devoured these books, and I just totally get what you mean, and so I don't think it's woo-woo, and thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate that. And how you came towards Ayurveda. I know that you do a lot of Ayurveda things. So what was that journey like?
Yeah. So fast forwarding a few years, I had moved to Australia in 2004, and I opened a yoga studio pretty quickly. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I'd been managing a studio in London, but I wanted to start my own business. And I saw the move to Australia as a good opportunity to do that. So I opened a studio, Samadhi, in Newtown, which many people remember with a lot of fondness. It was a very beautiful time. I was teaching lots of classes and workshops. We had lots of different programs running. And at that time in Sydney, there weren't that many yoga studios. It was still very different to how it is now, where, there was a handful of studio owners and studios, and everyone knew everyone. We were all quite friendly. It was a very nice community. And back then there was a yoga studio in Annandale, and the people that ran that studio were friendly with me, and we had spoken a few times, and they called me up one day and they said, we've made a double booking. We've got 2 different teachers coming to teach a workshop on the same night, and we can't accommodate both of them. Would you be willing to host an Ayurveda workshop for us? Like, we've got all the participants booked in, we just need the space. And I said, of course, I'd love to. And it turns out that the teacher that was teaching that evening was Maya Tiwari, Mother Maya, who's written lots of different Ayurveda books, but the most famous one is The Path of Practice. Really beautiful, beautiful book. And because I was, interested to know a little bit more about who was coming to teach in my studio, I got hold of a copy of this book, The Path of Practice, and I read it, and I fell in love straight away. I just was like, really thought this book was it spoke to me, like it really resonated. And then we ran the workshop, and Mother Maya Tiwari came along and taught. And again, same thing. It's like, I just really knew in that moment that she was going to be very significant in my life, and that she was going to be a teacher to me. And that's how it unfolded. So I spent a lot of time studying very closely with her after that first meeting. We brought her back to Australia several times, and she did some tours and taught some retreats and workshops. And it was before I had children, so I was able to travel also and be with her. Her book, Women's Power to Heal, came out pretty soon after we first met. And so I went on tour with her with that book in the States, and just got to spend quite a lot of time quite close with her, which was amazing, because I was learning Ayurveda kind of by osmosis. And I did some formal trainings with her, but I think I learned the most just being with her and traveling with her and spending time in her company.
Yeah, amazing. Maya Tiwari, her books are really great. So those who are listening, please go ahead and listen to, or you can download, or you can, anyway you read it. I remember reading the paper books, because I think that's how we learned at that time, and really good books, really amazing teacher. So you learn from the best. So that's good, yeah, it's really lovely to have someone like that. And I think Ayurveda is like that. You just get this information instinctively. And I think Ayurveda is common sense. It's the most common sense. It's just like, whatever is not serving you, remove that. And whatever serves you, add that. It's just as simple as that. And I think Maya Tiwari makes this very simple and very accessible. And that's why I like her books. And teachings. It's really nice. So you're really lucky that way, being in her presence and learning from her. And at the moment, what's happening now? Like, do you offer yoga teachings or teacher trainings or Ayurveda? Can you tell us about what you are doing at this moment?
Yeah, sure. I think an interesting thing's happened for me in the last few years, and I think it was starting to happen before the pandemic, but then with the pandemic, it sort of really happened a little bit more accelerated, which is I was teaching very, very much based on what I had learned from my teachers. So the two main sort of lineages or traditions that I teach from are Wise Earth Ayurveda, which is Maya Tiwari's school, and then Jivamukti Yoga. My teachers, Sharon Gannon and David Life, who founded the Jivamukti Yoga method, that's the method of yoga that I've taught. And Sharon in particular has been a very close teacher to me. And I feel so lucky, so blessed that I've had a very close relationship to both of those teachers, Sharon and Mother Maya, because I feel like a lot of people have quite a distant relationship with their teachers. And I've just been so lucky to have like very personal and close relationships, which is, I feel so blessed for that. And for many years, like more than a decade, what I was teaching was mostly what I had learned from them. So I felt very much like I was teaching Mother Maya's work, and I was teaching the Jivamukti work, and very, in a very humble way, very much wanting to stay very close to those methods. And then just before the pandemic happened, and sort of around that time, I wrote a book in 2019 called Mindful Living. I started to really add in my own work. Like I took the foundation of Jivamukti Yoga, the foundation of Wise Earth Ayurveda, but I was bringing in more of my own. Oh, I've read this book, or I've studied with this teacher. I started studying with Elena Brower, who's another incredible yoga teacher. She started to have a big influence on my work. So what I noticed, and it was also around the time I turned 40 as well, so lots of different things happening, I noticed that I was standing more in my own center as a teacher. And I think there's something interesting around that 40-year turning point, where sort of stepping into really owning what I'd learned and being ready to share in a more, I don't want to say confident, because I think I was always quite confident, but more confident in myself and my own inner knowing, rather than always being guided by something outside of me, which isn't to in any way disrespect my teachers. Like, I absolutely have so much gratitude and admiration and respect for my teachers. It's just that something was changing in me. And I think also, because I've got 5 children now. Back then I had 4 children. So something about being a mother and parenting, I was learning a lot on the job doing that as well. So that was very influential. I was teaching a lot more about family life. So these days, what my teaching looks like is I do a lot of work online. So I run 2 programs in the online space, which I love because it's very practical for my family life. I can't travel so much anymore, or be, all over the place in different locations. And I teach a lot with a very strong focus on women's work. That's something I feel very called to, which is funny. Somebody sent me an email recently, a not very pleasant email. It was a man, and he said, "Oh, you must really hate men if you only teach for women." And I was like, well, actually, I've got 4 sons and a male partner, so I definitely don't hate men. I love men, but I feel very called to the women's work. And I think part of that is because I have so many sons. Like, I have plenty of masculine energy in my life. I've got, teenage boys in my home. But something about working in the divine feminine is very powerful for me. So yeah, my work right now looks like a lot of work around the pre and postnatal world, because that's something I'm very interested in. I have a program called Yoga of Birth, which is all about that. And then Ayurveda, but very much through the lens of the feminine, and particularly with a focus on women who are feeling like they're being pulled in lots of different directions. So lots of mums, lots of people with family commitments, perhaps they're working, just feeling like the world that we live in, which I think is all of us these days, is so overwhelming. And how can we slow down? What are the simple, small things that we can do in our day that makes everything a bit more manageable? Because I'm sure you'll agree, Sunita, because you've been studying Ayurveda for such a long time as well. very often Ayurveda gets very complicated, and then people find out about it and they're like, oh, it's too hard, it's just overwhelming, it's another thing that I have to figure out, and it's sort of they throw it away because it just feels too hard. But as you said just a moment ago, actually it's not. It's very simple. If it's not in alignment, you let it go. If it's working and it's in alignment, you draw it in. It doesn't have to be so complicated. So I'm very much wanting to share that message that Ayurveda doesn't have to be super complex.
Yeah, I'm the same. I totally understand what you're saying. Because when I started learning Ayurveda, I learned mainly from different male teachers, and I realized that I need to soften it a bit to bring it in my life, and that was my way of looking at it. And the way I teach it, you can say that it's more accessible, it's less rigid. And the teachers, my teacher is Dr. Vasant Lad. He has, even though he is masculine, like a male body, but the approach is very divine feminine approach. And so I could connect with that. Before that, just like you, I was thinking that this is too hard. I don't want to get involved into Ayurveda at all. But then it was constantly there, and I just had to kind of bring it into the way, adapt it to my life. And I think what you're doing here is that small chunks, sharing that so that people can slowly and gently bring it into their life. And I really appreciate, that approach, because that's the same approach I have. And I totally also understand that sometimes people think that it is a feminine approach, but that's not what it is really. We all have masculine and feminine energy in us. And so connecting with both sides, otherwise there is imbalance. So we can even male doing your courses will connect with their divine feminine within. It's not that they are becoming female or anything like that. It's just that softening their energy field in a way, and I think that's much needed, because that imbalance is creating a lot of stress in people's life, and so unfortunately, some people are still stuck into a little bit, older ideas that how male should be, and that's why an internet can be vicious sometimes. So sorry about you having that kind of experience, but I know that you do amazing work. So would you like to share with us anything upcoming where my listeners can find your work and connect with you? I will put this information in show notes, but if you can let us know what's coming up for you now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. I have a signature program which is available all the time. It's called Ayurveda Goddess. Yeah. And the goddess part, reflects exactly what you were just speaking about, that idea of the divine feminine. So that's available for anyone that wants to work with me. It runs online. Some of it is pre-recorded and available for people to download, and then we have a live component to that as well. But coming up very soon, starting in early September, I have a 5-day online spring reset, because here in Australia we're moving into spring right now, which is so nice. The sun's just coming through the window and I'm just enjoying it so much. It's been a cold winter this year for us, so we're coming into that warmer weather. I can see when I'm walking around outside that the trees are starting to get some leaves, and it's really lovely. One of my children was
I'm in single layer, so I'm
yes, exactly. One of my children was talking about going to the beach this morning, so we're definitely, I think we're not quite ready for that yet, but anyway, spring is on its way. And one of the things I love to focus on when I'm teaching Ayurveda is an awareness of the seasons. I think this is a really beautiful place to start with the study of Ayurveda. Just noticing, even if you live in the city, like I live in Marrickville, it's under the flight path, it's very, very urban, it's close to the city, but still I can look out my window, I can see the sky, I can see the trees, I can notice what's happening in the seasons and the weather, and that's a beautiful beginning place for that connection. And perhaps even thinking about the food that you eat in relation to, in summer we eat lots of berries and we eat the stone fruit, in winter maybe more root vegetables, that kind of thing. So we'll be getting together over 5 days. It's actually free. I'm running it as a free offering. I've got lots of people signed up already. I'm really excited to share with them. And I think it will be, maybe there might be some things in there that people aren't so much expecting. Like I want to talk a lot actually about managing anxiety and working with feeling overwhelmed and balancing the nervous system, because I feel like in the last few years, everyone has had a heightened nervous system. We've all been living through quite challenging times.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely feeling like now is a great time for us to look at nervous system and rest and sleep and all of those things. So we'll look a little bit at food, a little bit at hormones and women's health, but particularly looking at things like anxiety and worry and elevated nervous system. And yeah, I'll share the link with you so people can just hop over and sign up for that and join us for free.
And is this evergreen link? Because some people may hear this podcast later.
Yeah.
So
if you're listening and it's gone past the time, which is September 2022, that we're running the challenge, then the best place to look is on the website and you'll see whatever else is coming up. I'm always running different things. And as I said, the Ayurveda Goddess program, that runs all of the time. So you can always follow that link.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Really appreciate that. And what next? Like, what is from here? I know that you have 5 children, and I, just like you, I'm also online 100% at the moment. With the pandemic, I just moved online, and I totally hear you that it really works with the busy lifestyle. My lifestyle is not that busy as yours with 5 kids, but I know that it must be quite demanding as a mother and so how do you find that balance in your life? Like, how do you still bring that peace and calm in your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, I have good days and not so good days. Some days I feel like I'm really nailing it and other days not so much. But one of the things I've done, even since my eldest child was a baby, is I always prioritize following my own passions and my own interests. And I think that shows the children a woman in her power. You know, I do a lot for my kids, trust me. Like I run around after them and I cook and I clean and I do all the things that mums do. But there are many times when I say to them, I'm not available for this because I'm working, or I can't do that for you because I'm doing something for myself. You know, like I present to them a woman who is a full human being with her own needs and interests and life. And they have grown up to be boys and young men that actually really respect that. You know, they respect that they have a working mum, and they are grateful when I'm around and able to do things for them, and they understand when I'm not. And I feel like what a lot of women do is they become mothers and then they just feel like they have to sacrifice themselves completely. It's almost like a real sense of losing identity. And I've worked very hard not to do that. And, you know, it doesn't mean I'm not physically around. Like I'm primary carer for all of them. I'm there like in person a lot of the time, but it might just be something like, you know, I'm reading a book. I'm not going to get up and make you a sandwich. You can make your own sandwich because I'm actually reading a book. Or, you know, I'm meditating. I mean, all of my kids know if I'm in my bedroom and my door's shut and I'm meditating, like I always say to them, it's kind of a joke in our household. Unless there's a fire or someone's bleeding, you don't interrupt me.
I understand.
So I don't, you know, it's not like I'm taking lots and lots of that time. It's little snippets throughout the day, but they have a respect for that. And that's because I've instilled it in them. So that's one aspect. Another thing I do, which I love to do, is I go up to northern New South Wales to the Krishna village 2 or 3 times a year, and I teach an in-person retreat there. It's one of the few things I do in person, and I just love it because I love that place so much. So that is always like a holiday for me. And yeah, just a beautiful opportunity to meet with students, you know, in person, which is different to the online space, and also have a break and a little holiday. These days, my partner comes with me and he looks after the baby. And it's really lovely. So that's another thing that is something I regularly do and I really look forward to.
Beautiful. Very well organized approach, I should say. And I think the boundaries need to be clear with the kids also, like, you know, and it really helps for their own growth as well, like having to understand and having working mom in a way, like they help them understand that, that everyone is their own person at the same time. When I was with my daughter, I was 100% present. So there was, then I will not look at anything else. But then when I needed my time, just like you, she knew that what is meditation time. And I used to use the same phrase, unless house burned down, anything dying, and it works. I mean, kids understand, and it's just beautiful to see that as well, and they're growing with that, completely full of love. At the same time, they also understand independence, and and not getting completely lost into our identity. It's very
Yeah.
important for women to do that. So
It's so true. I'll tell you one other thing just quickly that I think is really important. One thing I try not to do is when I'm with the boys and I'm spending time with them, which is every day at different times, I try not to be on my phone all the time.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I give them. And I ask the same of them. My older boys have phones, and I'm like, no, if we're eating a meal or we're having a conversation, or even if we're driving in the car, because sometimes that's the time that we get to chat, phones away, we're having a human connection. And I offer that to them. Like when I'm spending quality time with any one of my kids, the phone is away. And then I have times when I'm working and the phone will be out and I'll be on my laptop or whatever. And they know, okay, mom's working now. Yeah. But I think one of the things that can happen because of just how addictive devices can be is that we end up on our phone all the time, and we're giving our children very distracted attention. So I make a very clear practice of trying not to do that.
Yeah, and that's also really important for kids to see that, that life is not completely hooked onto the devices, there is life beyond that. So it's really good practice. I do the same with my daughter. My daughter phone came out, I think, year 9 when she first had her phone. But same rule, like, at that time, internet was not that. It was more for safety. The phone was because, we were 1 hour away from the school. And so I needed to know that everything is all right till she reached home. But yeah, I that's how it is. And weaving this motherhood into our yoga, love sharing wisdom of yoga and Ayurveda, I hesitate to call it career. It's not for me. And I think for you also the same thing, like it's beyond that, like it's the drive to help others through these wisdoms, and we have experience in our own self that how it helps. And that's why, I think that drive is there to share this with others, from that place of heart. And I really love the name you have taken for your business, Bhakti Rose. It's just so sweet. It's lovely, just like your brand basically is you, and that speaks there very clearly. I knew that you had done something for the young mothers. You'd done some programs and for prenatal and postnatal. And would you like to share that? Because I understand that a lot of moms really need that kind of support, and they don't know where to turn to. So do you have something evergreen, or do you do it once?
Yeah. I do. I have a yoga of birth program, which again is an evergreen program. People can come and sign into that anytime. And it's not so much based on the physical asana practice. There's a little bit of that. Like I do train the teachers, yoga teachers in particular, how to work safely with women in terms of the physical yoga practice. And I have a very good guest presenter on that training who talks a lot about anatomy and physiology. And the changes that are happening in your body. But my stronger focus is the yoga philosophy and how it can support you through all the transitions of, from conception through to, the toddler years when your baby's becoming a fully fledged human. I think that one of the areas in our culture at this time that's quite damaged and not very healthy is the birthing arena. I feel like it's very over medicalized, and there's a culture of fear. Like a lot of women are feeling very nervous about having a baby. They don't feel empowered. The medical system doesn't support a narrative that says your body is strong and capable and you can do this. It's all about what can go wrong. And so I talk a lot about the philosophy of yoga helping support us through transitions and through changes and empowerment, so that we're making proactive decisions. You know, as well as having 5 children of my own, I'm also trained as a doula, and I've practiced supporting women in childbirth for many years now. I've been doing that for a long time. So I've seen lots of babies being born, and I've seen lots of women going through pregnancy, and some of them have been amazing and magical, and some of them honestly have been quite traumatic. So I share a lot of support and resources, and again, simple practices that women can do to stay in their power, so they don't feel like the whole experience is being they're not being railroaded, but they're in the driving seat of that experience of birthing their baby.
Beautiful. I will put all this information, your website information, and also maybe your Instagram and Facebook pages, because we don't know where the listeners would like to follow. Some like Instagram, some like and your website information will be there.
Beautiful.
Thank you for taking time out today.
Thank you for having me. It's always so nice to chat with you. I still always think of you, because actually there's a little part in the Ayurveda Goddess training where you and I have a chat about nutrition, and people are often, saying that they've connected with you through me. And so we have a beautiful reciprocal relationship, and it's always lovely to chat with you, Sunita. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate that you're taking this time out of your day. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care. Bye for now.